A few years ago, I noticed a pattern in my own life. Different situations kept producing the same emotional outcome. I'd reach a goal I thought would bring relief. For a moment, it did. Then the familiar feeling returned. The restlessness, the pressure, the sense that I was chasing something I couldn't quite name. At first, I blamed the circumstances. I thought I needed a different strategy, a different goal, a different environment. But eventually, I had to ask a harder question. Why was the same emotional experience following me into completely different situations? That question led me somewhere deeper than productivity, performance, or achievement ever could. Patterns rarely announce themselves. They show up quietly. You leave one relationship and find yourself in another that feels strangely familiar. You build a new business only to recreate the same pressure that made you miserable in the previous one. You tell yourself this time will be different. Then 6 months later, you're having the same conversation with yourself again. Different circumstances, familiar experience. That's usually where the pattern is hiding. As you're listening, think about your own life. What experience keeps repeating? Where do you feel stuck in a cycle? What frustration keeps showing up? What emotion seems to follow you from one chapter to the next? Curiosity matters here. You're gathering clues. Every recurring pattern leaves evidence. Have you ever noticed how the same experience keeps showing up in different forms? Maybe it's a relationship dynamic. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's the feeling that no matter how much progress you make, you somehow end up back in a place that feels familiar. For a long time, I thought the answer was to work harder on myself, read another book, take another course, find the missing piece. What I didn't realize was that the pattern itself was the clue. Patterns have a way of repeating until we're willing to see what they're trying to reveal. The people may change, the circumstances may change, even the setting may look different. Yet the emotional experience underneath often stays the same. The same frustration, the same disappointment, the same feeling of being stuck in a cycle you can't quite explain. Most of us spend our energy trying to change the outcome. We focus on fixing the symptom while the source remains hidden beneath the surface. I started becoming curious about the patterns in my own life, not just what was happening, why it kept happening, what belief was driving it, what fear was sitting underneath it, what part of my identity was still shaping decisions long after it had stopped serving me. That curiosity changed everything. Because awareness creates choice. The moment a pattern becomes visible, something shifts. You stop reacting automatically. You begin to recognize the moments when an old story is influencing a new decision. You notice when you're operating from an identity you've already outgrown. You start seeing connections that were invisible before. And that is often where real change begins. Not when life suddenly becomes easier, not when every problem disappears, but when you can finally see the pattern clearly enough to choose a different path. This idea became the foundation for something I call the fracture map, a way of identifying the hidden patterns, beliefs, and identity fractures that quietly influence how we move through our lives. Because what remains unseen often remains repeated. And sometimes the breakthrough you've been searching for begins with seeing what's been there all along. If this resonates with you, you'll find the fracture map linked below. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next